A woman sits captive, her mind drifting to memories of her homeland Salia. A man kneels before her, lowering his hood to meet her gaze with piercing eyes. As she glances around, a grim realization sets in. She's surrounded by an army of the undead. A woman named Annis steps forward, proudly presenting her to their master, Rogue. Rogue wastes no time, leaning in with a question. "Are you the renowned appraiser, Calva?" Calva struggles to break free from her restraints, but when her efforts prove useless, she turns to her appraisal skill, searching for answers. What she discovers is a truth more horrifying than she could have imagined. The immortal army is no legend but a nightmarish reality, gaining strength through the dark work of a lone necromancer. Calva stares at Rogue, unable to reconcile the sinister aura of a necromancer with his outwardly composed demeanor. Yet she knows he's seeking to exploit her abilities, famed across the lands as one of the 7 sages of the Cyan Empire, to achieve his dark ambitions. Rogue notices her weakness, and Annis quickly explains that Calva was already exhausted when they seized her. Neo, the dragon, adds a grim layer of context. The Cyan Empire is locked in a brutal war against monstrous forces. It's likely that Calva, swept into a fierce battle, was leading the charge. At first, their troops held the advantage, but as the relentless battles dragged on, their strength began to wane. The final blow came when Emperor Nat abandoned the land, fleeing the kingdom. With the emperor gone, Calva was left as the sole leader capable of rallying the remaining soldiers. Yet, without any real organization, it was only a matter of time before the Cyan Empire would collapse. Rogue can't help but feel a twinge of sympathy now that he knows the Empire is still embroiled in conflict. He leans in, telling Calva he has a request. Calva realizes that her kingdom stands on the brink of destruction and that her own fate is just as bleak. Seeing the power of Rogue's undead forces, she takes a gamble, pleading with him to save her land. Annis, clearly irritated, tries to silence her, but Rogue counters, debating with Annis about how best to handle Calva's plea. Annis dismisses her, seeing no reason to indulge a human's desperate wishes, but Rogue turns to Calva, asking if she would join him willingly if he considered her request. Calva seizes the opportunity, vowing to give herself fully, body and mind, if it means saving her kingdom. Rogue instructs Nito to scout the enemy forces and entrusts Annis with command of his immortal army. His 2 loyal servants carry out his orders without question. Turning to Calva, he releases her from her restraints and asks her to be his guide. Overwhelmed, Calva struggles to find the words to express her gratitude. Meanwhile, a small squadron of Cyan knights makes a bitter final stand. Calva watches, recognizing how rapidly the situation has deteriorated. Rogue then asks if she knows any details about their attackers, and she explains that they are up against a combined force of 10 Golan kings, each with multiple generals. Annis finds it strange that the Cyan Empire's forces are being cornered by mere goblins. Nito returns, delivering an even more puzzling report. The Cyan troops have abandoned their posts, and he also spotted minotaurs among the ranks of the goblins. Typically, monsters like these would never cooperate. Nito notes that the goblins are executing complex tactical maneuvers. All of this points to one unsettling truth. Someone else is orchestrating the battle from the shadows. Rogue, intent on rescuing the Imperial soldiers cornered at the cliff's edge, entrusts Neo with the mission. Releasing him from his necromancer's bond, Rogue watches as a spirited Neo takes to the skies. Rogue then instructs Annis to handle a nearby skirmish, freeing her from her bond as well. Annis reveals her true, 6-winged form before ascending into the air. Finally, Rogue turns to his skeletal soldiers, releasing them, and they scatter across the battlefield. Calva recognizes the names Annis and Neo, but before she can fully grasp who or what they are, Rogue sweeps her onto the field of battle. Meanwhile, the last remnants of Cyan's army put up a fierce resistance against the combined Goblin and Minotaur forces. The Cyan commander knows their only hope is to defeat the enemy general, but the general is positioned far beyond reach. As the unit reaches a dead end between cliffs, fires blaze on both sides, trapping them. The commander asks his guard if Calva has been found, but the guard reports she likely disappeared in the earlier clashes. Callum, unwilling to let Calva's long leadership go in vain, steels himself for a final stand. Rallying his men, he calls on them to fight with every ounce of strength, to the last breath. Rog watches with satisfaction, impressed by the chaos unfolding. He signals to Annis and Nito to support the attack. Nito's flames cut through the sailor warriors and goblins, creating a brutal divide, while Annis swoops down, swiftly eliminating the dangerous minotaurs. Turning to the sailor warriors, she declares that they're about to witness her master's true genius. Suddenly, a massive wave of skeletal zombies crashes into the goblins, already shaken by the unexpected onslaught. Callum seizes this rare chance to escape and leads his men out of the ambush. But as they retreat, they come face to face with Rogue, who has prepared a devastating surprise. He summons a black hole, a spiraling void that pulls in countless goblins, swallowing them into a dark, inescapable abyss. Callum, awestruck, exclaims that no mere human could wield such terrifying power. When the dust settles, not even the bones of the goblins remain. Anais returns to report that she has finished off all 8 minotaurs, while Nito, slightly disappointed, remarks that he didn't get to slay them all. The Saiyan soldiers recognize Annis, and Callum steps forward, expressing deep gratitude to Rogue for his assistance. Rogue, maintaining a composed and authoritative air, assures them of his peaceful intentions. Callum's eyes widen, though, as he realizes Rogue's class, Necromancer. The other soldiers take notice as well, and disbelief ripples through the group. Callum, puzzled, questions why a Necromancer would bother to help them. Rogue simply replies that he is honoring a promise. At this, Calva reveals herself to Callum and his soldiers. Rogue, shifting the focus back to their prior agreement, reminds Calva of the conditions. He wants her to use her sage-level appraisal skills to mask his true role as a necromancer. Rogue explains, with a hint of regret, that people always react with fear or hostility when they learn of his powers. Understanding his reasoning and bound by her promise, Calva agrees to fulfill her role. Suddenly, one of the Saiyan soldiers drops to his knees. The realization hitting him, he remembers who the wealthy woman and the black dragon truly are. Calva's curiosity peaks as she, too, begins to recognize them. Nito is none other than the legendary black dragon, a figure of myth whose tales have been passed down through ancient times. And Anais? She was the first demon king in history, infamous for plunging the world into its first age of darkness. The notion that Rogue could have resurrected such legendary beings feels almost unbelievable to Calva. She turns to Rogue, asking what his true intent could be in bringing such formidable beings back from the dead. Rogue's response is simple. He just wanted friends. Calva and the others stare at him, suspicious of his seemingly innocent answer. But Nito and Anais, delighted, back up Rogue's words enthusiastically. Anais urges Calva to think it over. Her expression softens with pity, explaining that Rogue's power and role have left him isolated, making friendship impossible. Nito adds, almost sorrowfully, that Rogue hasn't had a single friend since he was born. Touched by their words, Calva tells her troops that maybe it's time to reconsider their view of necromancers. Rogue and his companions, after all, had undoubtedly saved their lives. Turning to Rogue, Calva suggests that he disguise his occupation, shifting from necromancer to adventurer, and invites him to collaborate with a guild in the Saiyan Empire. Rogue accepts eagerly, his eyes alight with hope, seeing this as a chance for a fresh start. Watching him, Calva senses that she's encountering someone truly extraordinary. She asks him who he really is. Rogue only smiles, replying that he's just a lonely necromancer. Calva lets the answer settle, deciding to leave it at that, as she begins leading him toward the Saiyan Empire.